Welcome everybody to a special edition of Yamato-e, coming to you from a place called the Center for Individuals with like special needs or something. I don't really know exactly what it's called, but it's a place that I've been going to for maybe a year or so. It's where Yamato-e all began. Now, today what I'm going to be talking to you about is the pH of soil. The pH of soil and the scientific method. Let me explain to you what the scientific method is so we can have some sort of grounding with that. We're going to be working with the soil pH by applying the scientific method. First, as far as the scientific method goes, and applying the scientific method to discovering the pH of the soil, first of all, let's talk about the hypothesis. The hypothesis, very basic explanation, is an educated guess. For instance, we are going to look at the pH of the soil sample 1, which is the control, and the difference between soil sample 1 and soil sample 2. Soil sample 2 is the variable. The first sample of the soil is taken directly from the bag, so it has whatever it is that it has. You calculate that and compare it to the soil sample number 2. Now the soil sample number 2 is what has changed from the soil variable 1 to what the second soil sample is. This is the control versus variable. The control is what we will take from the soil directly and serve as a basis for this whole scientific method experiment as far as discovering the difference between the two samples of soil. Next, you have to test. You have to test for the hypothesis. As the hypothesis is either going to be proven or disproven on account of the testing that you do for proving the scientific method. The way that we are going to test for this particular experiment is to look at the pH of the first soil sample, which came directly from the bag, and the second soil sample, which has come from the pot that a cannabis seed has been grown in for 28 days. We'll see how the soil has been affected, what nutrients are still there, thereby discovering what nutrients and pH have been altered during the time of this cannabis seed and its growth. We have to determine the difference between the two and explain them in greater detail, as well as explaining the results of the test. After we do that, we have to restate the hypothesis, which in this case is going to be defining the difference between the first soil sample and the second. The last part of the scientific method, which we will explain, is to prove or disprove the hypothesis with the results of the test. So that's basically what the scientific method is and how it pertains to this particular experiment. Here's the explanation as I wrote it so far. The scientific method is a systematic process for establishing facts through experimentation and testing. The basic steps are observation, hypothesis, prediction, experimentation, and analysis. Regarding the testing for the pH of the soil, this paper's intent is to show the difference between the two soil samples in order to prove or disprove the hypothesis. Of the two soil samples, soil sample 1 is taken of Happy Frog soil directly from the bag. The next, labeled soil sample 2, is from the same bag of Happy Frog soil, only with a cannabis plant growing in it for 23 days. Only then can the results of these tests be adequately divulged. Afterwards, the hypothesis that there is an observable difference between soil sample 1, which is the control, and soil sample 2, which is the variable, can be reached. This is how a paper on the scientific method as far as determining the pH of the soil begins.